I'll share my story just to the point where people can understand where I'm coming from. Because I can promise you, no matter where you are right now in your journey, if you want to start your own business or you're just ready to transition out of something you're doing, the world might think you're successful, but on the inside you feel a little empty and you're ready for something else. Or you started your business and it's not, it's more like another job rather than a business. Or maybe your business is doing good and you're ready for another level. I promise you, I've been there. I've been envious of others getting ahead. I was envious of my friends going off to college when I didn't. I could barely get out of high school. And I just know what those feelings are, but I also know the other side of it, of breaking through that barrier, to be able to focus on one thing, to change that story that I'm this kid from a small town with no money, whose parents got divorced and married 9 different times, who didn't have a college degree, had dyslexia. I had that story for a while. And I also had the empowering story to say, forget all that. I can do this. I don't care what other people think. The only reason I say this is because I understand both sides. I'm going to deliver the best I can of what I learned during this journey of, not knowing if it could happen to watching a little bit happen to massive success. So my story is simply this. Small town, parents got married and divorced a lot. I moved 20 times by the time I was 20 years old. But I want to share with you, I got it because I'd have a new stepdad that I loved and a new set of step grandparents and step brothers and sisters that I love. And then just one moment, that's all gone. No, there's another divorce, pack up the bikes and we're moving into a trailer. And then the next stepdad or stepmom comes along so it got to this point where anybody that was close to me ended up leaving. So I think you only got certain level of depth with me. I'd give a lot of me, but what that also did, it gave me, as my partner and friend, Tony Robbins, he put a sentence to it that I lived this way, but he really helped when he said, he told me this about 8 years ago, life happens for us, not to us. I realized all that happened for you. It happened for me. And it made me the man I am today, the father I am today, the husband I get to be to my wife today. And when I look back, each one of those things that seemed horrible in the moment or actually a gift from God or whatever you believe in, the universe, your maker. They were my gift to sharpen the axe in certain areas of my life that allowed me to be stealth. Not that you have to go through a tough time to be someone who wants more, but we all have the journey, I think, that's cut out for us. And we just get to decide when it's time to course correct. When we stop using that as an excuse and we use it as our fuel. We pull in the anchor and we hoist up our sails, right? And I think that's what you do so well and what I try to do so well. And Tony and Brendon Burchard and dear friends is we're just trying to say, come on, we all got the anchor and we can all just let it sit at the bottom of the water saying, I would do it, but, or we can find the tenacity, the nerve, the energy, the whatever it takes, the confidence to pull it up and say, put the sails up, let's just do this, and that's what I hope you get today. If there's just one thing on this interview that serves you, throw the rest away and apply that. I realized a couple things. I didn't like not being in control. If I look all the way back in the deepest part of my soul, I'm successful because, and we all need our why, we're purpose, we've heard that a million times, but I didn't like not being in control. I didn't like my parents moving. I loved the stepdad and he was gone, and I had a stepbrother I cared about gone. Like, I just didn't like being in control. And I knew at a young age, I'm talking like 10, I'm figuring this out. Like, no one's going to tell me how to run my life when I'm older. I didn't know how to articulate this at a young age, but I realized that both my parents worked hard, but neither of them had any money. Hard work had nothing to do with success. So those few things. And then the last part is I really did watch my mom work 3 jobs to make nothing. And she'd come home late and her back would hurt and her hands were hurt. She cleaned houses and cut hair and painted houses. So the combo, right? We all need something to get like the rocket off the ground, right? They say a rocket, most of the energy is just getting it off the ground. So whatever it is, if it's pain, use it. If it's running away from something that's not pleasant in your life, use it, feel it. I didn't like not being in control. I didn't like worrying about money, and I didn't want to work as hard as them to have nothing. That combo made me be the scrappy guy today. And I started cutting firewood in high school. I started buying wrecked cars and fixing them up and selling them. And then I started a collision repair shop. It was called Dean Collision Center. I partnered with my dad, and then we went through another divorce and kind of wigged out. We lost everything in my 20s and I had to start over. And then I started in real estate. I already dabbled in real estate. Then I started real estate really heavy. And I took a lot of this work ethic. And this is just one great thing I think everybody could take away from. People say, well, what made you successful in firewood or cars? I had a tow truck company. I had 25 apartments. I buy raw land and build houses. I wrote books. I did an infomercial. I created courses. I do live events. I did the biggest launch in internet history with Tony Robbins. People are like, how do you have all these things? And there's a through line. There absolutely is a through line that I use my past as my fuel. I still don't forget what it's like to be the underdog. I always craft new stories. I think we all have those two voices that live in us. I do all the time. I still have the voice to tell me you're an imposter. You're not that smart. You're going to lose everything. It's not the right time. Don't you have enough? Like, I'm like, really? I'm 51. You still are there? Like, you've been there since high school. Shut up.
Before we keep going, I have a question for you, because I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of people listening right now that are like, yes, he's speaking my language. Like, that's what I struggle with. And so I'm so curious, one of the things that, because I talked about this, actually, this kind of happened when I was speaking at your event and Brendon's event. I remember right before having the same feelings like, oh, I don't have,
Yeah.
high bestsellers. I don't have millions of followers or, as big of followings. I have this quote. So one of the weird things about me, Dean, and I don't think you know this yet, is that if I hear something that motivates me or inspires me, I write it on these giant Post-it notes. And so I have this beautifully decorated home, and then the whole house, I have Post-it notes because words
I love it.
with me. And I have this one, and it says, say yes, figure it out later, put yourself at risk of something extraordinary happening. Don't worry if you don't know how to do it. And if it scares you, even more reason to say yes and get after it.
I love it.
A lot of times when I'm struggling with imposter syndrome, because I think everybody struggles with that, right? Especially those of us, and I've shared my story with those guys listening. I grew up super poor. I had that belief system that who am I? Just a poor girl from a small town, What I've had to learn is affirmations, surrounding yourself with the right people, and just trying, right? Embracing the fact they're always going to suck at the beginning, and then you can only go from there. And I think it's that trying and failing is what actually creates the tenacity and the grit necessary to be successful. In fact, I actually think that's more of the success than the thing you're trying to.
It always is. I just had this conversation with somebody recently, and actually I just had this conversation with my wife. Yeah. She was trying to find the confidence. This is her first time having a baby, right? And you probably remember that. It's got to be scary as hell. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, thank God the world doesn't rely on men to do it, because there'd be no kids, right?
Well, your first one, it's hard because it's the unknown, right? So
yes, this was the silly analogy I'm going to share with my wife. Just what you said about you have to invoke your courage muscles when all of us are looking for our confidence muscle. This is what I said to my wife. She's like doing an amazing job. She wants to do it all natural, and I'll support whatever decision she makes. This is her body and our amazing baby. She's going to do it. I know her. But she's getting scared. And she was like, I'm trying to find the confidence. And I said, babe, you can't find confidence in something you've never done. I just don't believe that. I said, let me give you an example. And sometimes it's hard to be the teacher in your home. I don't want to feel like I'm preaching to my wife. She watches me enough on stage, but I said, babe, if I'm afraid of heights, terribly afraid of heights, right? I said, but if I went skydiving, think about it. And I'm standing in the door is open, the wind is blowing, the instructor's got his hand on my back, ready to push me out. I would be dying, because I have to invoke my courage muscle to get out that door. I don't have the confidence. I never jumped out of a plane. I don't know if the parachute's going to open. I don't know what it feels on my legs when I hit the ground. All of that has to be what you said. All it has to be courage to just jump in. But here's the thing, Natalie, if I did it 4 times, right? 4 times. What would I be doing the 4th time I was, and this is what I said to my wife. I said, what would I be doing the 4th time I was in that doorway? I'd have my phone out doing a selfie going, I'm jumping out of the plane. And I jump out and I do flips and I do crazy stuff, because I had already did it. I've already done it. So the courage turns into the experience, and the experience turns into confidence. And if you do it long enough, the confidence turns into wisdom. So I said, babe, there's nothing I've ever seen you do that you haven't attacked. I said, you're going to have a day of pain for a lifetime of pleasure. I said, invoke the courage muscle, because if you have the courage, by the time you have a second baby, you're like, oh, that's nothing. We're just here because it's new. And that's the same thing with everybody listening, whether it's imposter syndrome or that voice that tells you you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not the perfect size, perfect shape, live in the perfect area. That's just that crappy little voice that's going to be there forever. And we just have to take the courage muscle and have that other voice that says, no, you are good enough. Yes, you're beautiful. Yes, you can do it the way you are. Yes, you're smart enough. You're not an imposter. People need what you want to give to the world. That voice just has to be a little bit stronger than that shitty voice. I always tell everybody I have both voices, and the good voice only wins like 21 to 22. Like, I don't have this empowering voice and shut that one down. The other one's always trying. Luckily he loses.